Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Security Repo Podcast. Again, I'm Dwayne. I am your host, and I am happy to be here with you. Thank you so much, community, for liking and subscribing and getting our message out there and helping us spread the good word about security, especially the best advice. I really appreciate everybody watching those shorts. This week, we have an awesome community member who's actually a returning guest. She goes by the handle AriaDear, but I'll just call her Aria. She's a security engineer by day and DuckBurg resident by night. She's been working in SecOps for almost 5 years and specializing in privileged access management. She's spoken at BlueTeamCon, ChibrrCon, and the Defcon Furs village on that very topic. Welcome back to the show.
Yay! Thank you for inviting me back.
Oh, it's great to see you again. It was great to see you again at BlueTeamCon, one of my favorite events. How was the BlueTeamCon for you?
It's like a reunion every time I go back. Like all our friends are there, and there are a lot of good, there were more I think they added more talks this year. It was
They
really,
did.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's a third
Um,
track this year, so
I
that's
know.
a third more talks. Or
No,
was it 50% more talks?
I even found myself in the conference room quite a bit. I feel like it's getting way more utilized than like let's say like the first couple years. No, I've learned some weird stuff in there.
BlueTeamCon is focused on the defender, and some of the better conversations I have aren't in the hey new exploit, new threat actor group. Though I did learn a lot about both of those things there. The best conversations are really about how do we work with our teams to make sure they are safe. And you made a really salient point in the hallway. You said you're trying to work with people to help them understand that you're not trying to get them fired. You don't want them to get fired. And I thought that was a brilliant point that led to the whole conversation where I invited you back on the show. So, what did you mean by that? Where did that come from?
I'm in the realm of like access management and, just working with folks who have that privileged access when, maybe it's too much access, which in an essence, I am, trying to take some of it away, but also figuring out how they can, proceed to do their jobs, you, at least so they can do their jobs efficiently while we do that. But a lot of times, I guess with security, I feel like folks outside of that realm misinterpret our role as like we're not the internet police and we're not trying to get people in trouble. It's not. Yeah, I don't exist to have like gotcha moments. I actually want to help people. And for the most part, I would say most of my experiences working with folks, they understand that that their role in the organization, keeping it secure, talking to like it could be a developer or an end user with privileged access, and I'm kind of hinting it's like we need to revoke your direct access and utilize another control where it gives you like temporary access for whenever you need it. And sometimes I get pushback, especially because some developers are used to having global global administrator or just like persistent access whenever they want. And then I would get a lot of pushback and kind of an attitude. And I don't take it, and like it's not something to, at least some people would take it personally, but that's when I start like that, when I say I don't want to get you fired. I have done that with some people where I've if I detect some kind of apprehension or just maybe like stubbornness, but I don't think it's wrong to call it just stubbornness and just leave it at that. But it I do talk to these people, and it's like, what's going on here? Like, just me and you, not security engineer Aria, just me. It's like, something is what I'm asking of you going to hurt you? And and it leads to another conversation where, because it could very well lead to maybe their expectations of their stakeholders or their manager may need to be, maybe we need to communicate to them and say, like, at least we need to understand, like, they need to understand the expectations we have from you know you know from information security. And also, we need to make sure that what we're enforcing on them works for them so they can do their jobs in a sense, so the business can continue. So that was like the whole crux of that conversation. And we got so excited talking about it. And then it was like, let's talk about this some more. So,
Yeah, the underlying thing there really is aligning with them as people, and that's what I think how we started talking about empathy in that conversation, where it led to some other thoughts. But I just had a thought while you were talking there. Wouldn't it have been better to set them down in front of a 5-minute video that explains principle of least privilege and tell them this is a control and security has to do it this way?
okay, when you
I'm
say
joking,
that,
obviously.
I
I'm
know,
joking,
but
obviously.
like if it were me, like I always put position, myself in the position of someone else, I would not watch it. You can't make it. No, it's just and also for one, it's just more like I'm too busy. Like I'll get into that, but to answer your question directly, I feel like it's very impersonal to do that. It's like they are not getting hurt. I'm not. It's not helping them, and it's if anything, it's just dismissing like whatever issue that they may have with this. And it's like, just go watch this video on least privilege. And like, it's not, it's in a very impersonal approach. And we're talking about human and, being human and understanding one another. So, but I know it's a joke, but yeah, it's like, ironically, it's the same way with like a very long-winded email. If I don't get the point of it within like the first 3 lines, and my brain just shuts off.
I mean, I have so many friends in tech that do not like the security department because they are the department of no. They're the department of you've done it wrong. And that's the only time they interact. But what's the pushback you hear when you do say, hey, we have to do this? This is the security control we need to put in place. Like it or lump it. How do you handle that?
When you get the pushback, you kind of have to understand where they're coming from, what the basis of that pushback. A lot of times is, misunderstanding, and it, it's, believe it or not, we have a lot of smart people out in the world who don't have a good grasp of what we understand as security, but it's not like, like in a matter of intelligence at all. Like you can only specialize in so many realms in your day. So there's people I've found that still think the antivirus, quote unquote, the antivirus is supposed to stop, you know, anything malicious happening on your device, and they could just do whatever they want. Yeah, no, it's not it's not a matter. It's not like maybe some folks are going to be laughing at that, but it's like it's how are they going to know? You can have folks who are so incredibly intelligent in finance or just any other field, but maybe if there's one thing to get, folks are getting wrong in security about people, it's you are not aligned in how much they know versus how much you know. And maybe it's almost like you're assuming they know more than they do, but you're also not taking the time to understand what they don't know. And nobody's going to say they don't know. People like, I feel like in security, we are better about acknowledging that we don't know, but people at large don't want to say they don't know something, especially like if there's some insecurity about, it's like maybe they see you as knowing something and they feel bad about it and they shouldn't be.
You're touching on, like, I think the core of the problem. And security really does want people to be safe. And we really want people to know everything we know, but wow, people have so much other stuff going on. And that actually reminds me of another point you made in our hallway conversation, that the hardest thing to teach in security or security people is empathy. How can people better engage? Like, what tips would you give people when they do approach these situations and they need to, like, teach people these concepts without hurting their feelings?
Why is it so hard to teach empathy? Well, it's not taught, I guess, if one's coming from a technology background. It's you're probably taking 2 electives in, sociology, like if we're taking it literally. I feel like we could do more about mental health for ourselves, but we don't. So, it's human nature is not something that most of us have a good grasp on. So how do you teach that? And I also was thinking because it's like how do you teach empathy? It's almost like how do you teach happiness too? How do you Yeah, no, think about it. It's like, if someone's really having a really bad time, they're depressed, it's like, just be happy. It's such an empty, it is an empty statement. And it's like we need to be more empathetic to people. And, no one's, there's not that many folks I feel like who will like, no, I disagree. No, like most people agree. It's like, people need to be empathetic, but how? It's not really broken down. And even I spent like, at least like, this is what I do like when I lay awake at night just thinking about these questions. Empathy gets is really difficult to teach when you are in survival mode, and you just, you're, instead of seeing another person or users or the organization, you just see obstacles, or you just see everything as blockers. And it's a nasty cycle. It's like I'm touching upon a whole lot of problems it with like teaching empathy.
It makes sense though that this is that complicated because everything we do in security turns out to be that complicated.
Hmm.
Uh, but to tie it back to how this whole conversation started, you are meeting them where they are. You are actually helping them align their goals with your goals. So everybody's like getting stuff done. Do you got any stories of like when that worked exceptionally well?
The times that where I've gotten pushback, uh, what helped it become successful, what helped it become successful is it starts with a conversation, a one-on-one conversation with, like this person, and not just the user, this person. I tell them, I got my security hat off. I actually want to know why what's I see there's a concern, and like, no, none of this is and I tell them, like, it's not being recorded. You and I are talking. But it's what's made it successful is actually hearing them, and not just, me being like, oh, I'm from information security, and you're violating, like, your actions are not adhering to our compliance requirements, and here is this video. So, like, watch it, and then, please do the thing. It's being with them every step of the way, because like, even like, it might take some time, but you got to break it down to smaller pieces, where find out what their um, what exactly is pressing for it. And sometimes it's just a misunderstanding, and then once they realize that we're not just trying to be jerks, we are trying, they actually can follow it. Sometimes it's just they don't want to take the time to do it because they already are busy with their, with other requirements that they have with their job. What's successful is a conversation. Like, it's being interested in the other person, for one thing. At least, like, how's your Friday, for example, and in actually remembering the things that they have mentioned in the past, if it's like your second or third conversation with this user. It's a conversation. It's a simple answer, but it's not easy to do. And on it's I feel like that contributes to the success. And listening and having a conversation. I enjoy stories. Like, I've like, in my Pam talk, I talk about, like, you know I have a Pam talk where I use references from DuckTales, and not just references. It's the framework of my talk to explain complicated security concepts. My examples are in access management. It's like, they're like, well, I set a complicated password and I'm not going to share it with anybody. Sometimes they think they do, as long as they do that, they're golden. And so they think that we don't trust them to, they think we think, like, they think that we think they're going to do the wrong thing, but they just need to understand you are still an attack vector because of black magic. And I use, like, patch to hash attack is kind of like black magic to them, honestly. So, it,
We're getting to the end of the program. We're going to ask you the four questions because, well,
ah,
we ask the same four questions every guest. You've been a guest before and you have answered these. So I'm going to ask them a little bit different.
oh,
Nothing to
okay.
shock you. But I'm going to say the first one is, instead of asking your favorite security command line tool, what's your overall just favorite security tool that you've ever used?
Oh boy. Security tool. I mean, I can't even remember what I answered last time, but it's not really security tool. But I live, breathe, in PowerShell, so it's my life force. So that'll just have to be just favorite tool. What regard it helps me discover anything, everything I need, at least like in like our, like one's environment. Uh, I'll leave it at that.
You have been involved in the hiring process. Last time you were here, we asked you what your favorite question was as someone being interviewed. What questions have you asked people when you have interviewed them? Do you have a go-to that you go to every time?
Maybe it's a cop out, but I mentioned already that that I like stories. So my go-to question is, I am looking at something, anything remotely interesting in their resume, and I want them to talk about it. I asked them, you mentioned this. What happened when when this occurred? Because I like to, I mean, it's one way in like listening to them, at least how much detail they can go into this experience. And it's as like in a hiring process, it's you can get a grasp whether it did happen or they're just saying they know of something. And it's it it goes back down to, I like hearing a story, so please tell me a story. Please tell me a story of when this happened, like when this happened.
I like that because stories do connect us, and like you said earlier in our interview today, like that's one of the ways that makes us human. Like that's something that makes us uniquely humans. We tell stories. All right, best advice, worst advice. It's been a while since you were on the show. What's the best advice you've heard recently?
It might have been the same answer, but the best security advice is ask all the dumb questions. In honest, I mean, people say there's not a dumb question, and then say, they say that's a dumb question. Even if, uh, even if it's something I've said before, maybe because if you're learning something and you're at the, like being fed the fire hose, ask, just ask, what does this mean? Or I'm sorry if you've mentioned this before, but, and go on with the question. And then like it's in a case where like I'm always happy to, go into those details. But is best security advice, don't be afraid to ask. And it's hard because there are still people out there that will make you afraid to ask, but it is still the advice I give. And, even I've worked on being braver to ask all the dumb questions.
Worst advice that you're here. Ah, okay, worst advice that you are hearing out there that you've heard recently.
It's I, I had to think long and hard about this. It's because it, I think maybe the only bad advice, in my opinion, is um, at least, or I guess maybe uh, as a start, I have nothing against AI, but resorting to just AI to accomplish a task, for coding, for example, and n- not or disregarding, or how about this? I guess the worst security advice, because I'll just go ahead and say the point. Maybe I can come up a better way of explaining it. Not taking the time to understand how things work, even if AI can do it for you.
So we are here at the end of the program. Thank you so much for coming back and being a guest again. I always like to leave it open for any last words for the guests to have last say. So floor is yours.
Oh, I guess it's nothing profound, but I want you guys to have a great weekend. And, at the end of the day, we are just doing our best. And even if, like as security professionals, if we're in front of the, like the fire hose and, all things seem to be going wrong, it's like we're all in the same place together. And I feel like you're not failing. I feel like a lot of folks need to be told that. And I know it doesn't tie into our, um, well, I guess it does tie into our conversation of empathy. Like, it's like I really empathize what a lot of folks are going through right now. And I want to tell everybody who's listening, you're doing a good job. If you give a damn, and even if you can't, it's honestly, sometimes you have a good reason for it, but you need to take care of yourself too. So empathy, that's how you do it.
Wonderful words. And thanks for
Yes.
everybody out there learning about empathy with us today. Again, like, subscribe, send to your friends, and keep spreading those words out there. So thanks again, Aria.
See you guys. Thank